if you're not technically inclined and if you don't have the patience, do not get into 3D printing, period. Welcome back to Kimchi Studios, where we make a bunch of junk on this channel. And today we're going to be looking at, should you get into 3D printing? Now, I've been 3D printing for a couple of years now. It was very expensive just a few years ago, right during the beginning of the COVID pandemic bullshit era. And I decided that was a good time to waste, nearly about $500,000, okay, on a very experimental early market product and have it shipped on over here from China. And then I had my first Creality printer. I got the V10 V310. See, I've already forgotten what it's called because I didn't like it that much. It was not as good as what we have now. Now we have better technology because people have been continuing to buy them, and there's a lot of competition in that sphere. Right now I'm running with Elegoo printers. They give me the least amount of problems. Usually if there's a problem, you can find a lot of help on the internet to be able to figure out those problems. Now, if you're thinking about should you get into 3D printing, me personally, I fit into the category of I want to make my own things, and I see 3D printing as the medium, the tool, right, to be able to pop those things out. I also understood that I needed to spend a lot of time learning how to 3D model. And it depends on your brain, your work ethic, and your software of choice. I tried Blender. Blender didn't really jive with the way that I wanted it to. So a lot of people use Blender, but there are so many tools out there now. You can even use Tinkercad, right? Or whatever it's called. And the problem that I have is these tools are always falling in and out of popularity. They're having updates. They're getting broken by updates. So for me, my brain doesn't work that way. Now, the other category that I usually put people into is I want to print other people's stuff. I want to be able to print my own little trinkets, gadgets, desktop toys, whatever. And I got you covered. Oh, you didn't think I was going to start this video without talking about my own designs, did you? This was my first product that I made. This is a holster for the Metaquest 2, okay? It's pretty sweet. It's got a clip. The only problem was this clip could break, so I would include, an extra pair of them, and screws in on the side. It's pretty cool. You clip it to the side of your pants, your belt, but it needs kind of a sturdy set of pants, like jeans or something like that. Anyway, that was my first product. And then I designed quite a few more things. My 9mm chamber flag. Okay, I have an emoji coaster set. Nobody wanted, but I thought it was pretty mind-blowing. You can't really see that. Well, you can go to Coles 3D and you can download it yourself. So I did that in FreeCAD. I did this in FreeCAD. FreeCAD, if you haven't noticed, is free. I also did this design in FreeCAD. Now, it took me a lot longer than I wanted it to because FreeCAD is, well, at the time it was a little more finicky, and everybody has their own poison. A lot of people like plasticity. It's kind of branded itself as CAD for artists, and I'm very interested in that. I think I fit into that category. I'm like in between, right? I'm in between worlds. I got my creative side, and then I have my logical side, and I lean more on the creative, intuitive side, but I do tap into that logical side in the process. This video would not be complete if I didn't shill my new holster for the Metaquest 3, 3S, the 2, and even the original Oculus Rift controllers. I shill this thing all the time. It's great. The Chameleon VR holster. Check it out. I have a video. Around Halloween time, I made a very simple jack-o'-lantern. I actually put a candle in there. Ghost candy tray. Fill it up. Fill around the skirt. It's a ghost. My angry, greedy little ghost candy bowl. Okay? He's like munching on candy. All right? Made a video about that. You can go check that out. Also works well as a popcorn bucket. This was also a VR sculpt. Sorry, those were VR sculpts. The ones that don't look like they were made in CAD, they're VR sculpts. And I love VR sculpting. I always talk about it on this channel. This is my Batman bookend. I need to make a cavity on the bottom so that you can put some weights in it. But, it's a Batman statue, all right? It's my first try. I thought it went pretty well, and I have some ideas of how I can do even better and make some really cool Batman stuff. I like Batman. I've always been kind of a Batman fan. I grew up with X-Men and Batman, but I'm a grown-ass adult, so Batman seems cooler now. He just needs a gun. And of course, my largely unpopular, this is a stand. This is the medallion for the Mechanicus Adeptus medallion. Okay, it fits right in there. This also doubles as a smartphone holder. Hold on. Okay, so this is on the desk, and check that out. Perfect viewing angle, right? There's always, I have a video where I talk about all my, double secret, triple, hidden uses in my 3D prints that I found, so go check it out. I also invented this USB cable organizer. It is a fantastic little product, but I struggle with the marketing aspect of things. That's a whole nother ballpark. Let's get back to 3D printing. Now, my first experience with 3D printing was pretty terrible. You can imagine leveling was a huge issue. Now, we used to have printers that had these things that you would screw and you would have to put like a sheet of paper, or just, I ended up just learning how to eyeball it. Eyeballing it was way better than putting the sheet of paper under. And oftentimes we would get the nozzle to scratch the surface, and that would ruin the nozzle. We'd have to replace the nozzle. They're fairly cheap, unless you get into those big expensive ones. I've seen ones that are like $100, which is crazy. Get it leveled, and then you print, and it still doesn't stick. So then you resort to using like a glue stick. I use a glue stick for some things. It depends on what I'm printing and what material I'm printing. Also, it depends on the temperature room. Oh yeah, we're gonna get into that a little bit. So if you're getting into 3D printing as a light hobby, I don't think we're there yet. It's not quite the microwavable oven, if you will. We're gonna get there eventually, I think, but for the meantime, it is a very technical hobby. So you have to understand that if you're getting into it. And if you're like me and you're just, for some reason, you're attracted to these difficult, time-sucking hobbies that can turn into something, profitable in the future, right? So if you have like a product idea, I would say you're going to need a large community support base. So if that's a certain printer and their community and their forums, expect to spend a significant amount of time on there. I'm not like that. I don't like Discord. I don't like forums. I think they're funny. Now, I did find one page on Reddit. I'm not a Reddit guy, but Reddit still to this day, for me, has been a wonderful source to go and find certain information, whether that be health related or, technical related. I found a lot of technical information on Reddit. So today we're going to be taking a look at what I think is a hilarious gut check for anybody trying to get into 3D printing. This is on r/3D printing, and I'm going to put a link to this specific page in the description of the video. I just wanted to go over some of the responses in here. I thought they were hilarious. It starts out with the question, what are some reasons you would tell someone not to buy a 3D printer? And I think that's the right way to approach it. That's like, look, this thing looks kind of technical. Should I get into this, right? The thing that I would say is worth getting into at this point is VR. I'm always talking about VR sculpting. Now I'm talking about VR painting. VR is an excellent lower barrier to entry into learning skills, especially the arts. So definitely go check those videos out. But here it says, if someone walked up to you and gave you the reasons as to why they want to buy a high-end printer and jump in, if they started giving you their reasons, what would you look out for to tell them this probably isn't for you? All right. So I thought I'm just going to go over briefly some of these answers that I thought were very, very relevant. Okay. So these are sorted with best comments on the top. That's just how I like to leave it. I don't visit the site often, but this literally is the best comment you can get right out the gate if you're on the fence about getting into 3D printing or not. I can make some money on the side with it. What do you think all this is, right? Yeah, so yeah. So many people on 3D print Discords asking for advice because my customer expects delivery tomorrow while barely able to operate printers at all. Oh, this is so true. Like, everybody thinks it's so easy, and you will be deceived by social media and TikTok and YouTubers. Now, let me tell you something. There are a significant amount of YouTubers, especially, that are, influencers and salesmen for these 3D printers. You'll notice who they are by people who aren't giving unbiased reviews and technical, deep dives into these printers. And they're just showcasing what they can do, and they're kind of hyping them up, right? They have really bright colors. bisexual lighting, and they really love to just review all of this expensive hardware. Where that money comes from, I don't know, a trust fund, or maybe they're sponsored, right? They're probably sponsored. So you definitely need to be careful of that, because you could be getting yourself into something that is a pain in the ass. For me, it was. And I thought I knew what I was doing, and I was doing it often, but more often than not, we find ourselves not printing. Okay, there's a lot of downtime where you're not printing. And that is something that I didn't expect to happen. It happened with my VR because it was so technically buggy. The original Oculus Rift was very buggy on the PC, and there were some significant issues that would come up that were very difficult to solve. But now we're at the point where, you know, you have your standalone headsets. It's basically a gaming console with the ability to, with a bunch of, you know, skill-based apps now. So it's amazing. I'm going to make so much money. This Ender 3 is going to pay for itself in a week. And then you see them 6 months later, $700 in upgrades, finally printed their best benchy, and they're waiting for a new Z-axis rod. I didn't know what this was until I beat up my printers. Yeah, I beat them up regularly, right? So I got so mad, one printer was not functioning right, and I ended up realizing that the Z-axis was bent. So you can unscrew it, and then you can let it roll on a table, and you can see if it is bent or not. It'll wobble if it's bent. If it's bent, the good news is you can go to Home Depot and get a new one, or you can, you know, you can have it cut to size there, and then you got to kind of finish it off, you know, around the top. You don't want a sharp-edged cut, you know, screw. It's just a giant screw, okay? Very, very long screw. You can also ask the company to send you one. I reached out to Elegoo, and they said, yeah, how many do you need? It was extremely cheap, okay? It was, the shipping cost more than the actual screws, but I should ask for more. But yeah, it was great process. They sent me them, and they were fine. And my printing has been fine ever since. So that was something that I did not know. And there's a lot of things about your specific printer that you're going to get into that you're not going to know. And you're going to have to learn the hard way. These are extremely valid comments. I swear every time my 3D printer comes into a convo, somebody asks if I make money off of it. No, I don't. Not every hobby needs to be a side hustle. It depends on who you are, right? And it's always people who don't have any side income telling me to do it. Not trying to slave away processing prints on top of my 9 to 5 for a few dollars a print. Now, okay, this is what I need to bring this up. If you go on TikTok, you're going to see a lot of people with 3D printers trying to shill stuff that they didn't even make. They've printed it, but they didn't design it. You can go on places like Thingiverse, and I don't even know the other stuff that is out there now. I don't even associate with the 3D printing crowd. I kind of like observed, I lurked, and I watched from a distance their interactions on Twitter and stuff like that. And they are a completely different crowd. And I don't think I'm on that spectrum. Let's just put it that way. So I stay away from that area. I think they can be a good source of technical info, but the problem is when something becomes too technical, it's no longer a hobby. It turns into a sort of part-time and sometimes full-time job, right? So I decided that wasn't my crew, my tribe, my vibe, if you will. So you'll see a lot of people on TikTok shilling the same type of thing, like the frickin' dragons, right? The multicolored dragons, all kinds of Pokemon. And you notice something, they have a lot of sitting inventory. They'll have all of these plastic, you know, I got them too, right? Except mine's not full of 3D print stuff. They have all these drawers, these plastic drawers, and they're full of these 3D prints, and they're just sitting around. That's sitting inventory, okay? So if you have a business and you have a bunch of sitting inventory, you're not making sales, you're not making money. And they'll lie to you and they'll say, oh, I'll teach you how I do it or how I did it. That could all just be the giant stage that person has set up in order to sell you their freaking course, right? I've seen this several times on TikTok especially, because I think TikTok is the greatest place to kind of really get your business in front of the world. Instagram used to be that, but it never really was, if you know what I mean. Instagram kind of freaking sucks. But TikTok has become the boomer/millennial kind of, you know, small business dream. You can really get your brand out there. You can have, It's easy to make content and distribute that content on there. You always get a fair chance on TikTok, it feels, in front of actual people instead of bots. And with the TikTok shop integration, I think Meta, Etsy, YouTube, they all fumbled the ball. They totally missed that opportunity. And TikTok shop has so many people with their, tax ID numbers, their business tax ID numbers registered. They got so much info, okay? You better pray that the US acquires TikTok, all right? So TikTok is a very great place for people to show off their businesses, their products. You can live stream while you're making something or designing something. I've seen many 3D printing people do it, and I think that's pretty smart, but it's very boring. So let's move on to probably my favorite comment here. This is the one that made me laugh the hardest. So this user says, "Don't believe the marketing. 3D printing is complicated and challenging." That's kind of exactly what I was hinting at before with the, you get these hype channels that they're just trying to get that conversion, that sale. And deciding to buy a couple $100 3D printer is a freaking leap, okay? People don't understand. You're not just buying a printer, you're buying the filaments. You're going to be paying for electricity, right, to run these printers. And there's so much more involved. You're going to have to be buying replacement nozzles. You're going to have to learn how to level the thing. Even if it has auto leveling, you're going to have to learn how to do the Z offset. You're going to have to learn how to use the different types of filament, right? TPU doesn't heat and behave the same way that PLA does, okay? TPU is this soft, squishy filament that's extremely strong and resilient. I love it. Right? And it behaves very differently. This has almost no infill. This is like 10% infill. Oh, by the way, you're going to have to learn how to use your slicer. What's a slicer? That's the thing that you use. That's a program, an app, if you will, that you use to take your 3D model and it chops it up into steps, X, Y, Z steps for your printer nozzle to follow and rotate its gears, its wheels to spit out the PLA. Now, if you have a resin printer, which I just got, holy shit, resin printers are awesome, okay? The only downside is the toxicity of the uncured resin print. You're gonna have to have it in a well-ventilated area. I see a lot of people doing it in their bedroom, which is freaking crazy. I have a filter hooked up to the back of my Elegoo Saturn 4 Ultra, I believe it's called. And they just released a new model that has a few more bells and whistles that people wanted for a while, but it's very affordable and the quality is amazing, but the smell is crazy. Like it's wild. I would not put it in an enclosed room at all, garage only. So I'm just trying to give you an idea of all of the things. Like it's kind of a lifestyle change if you're going to be using it that often. And if you're going to be doing something like a resin printer, right? If you're sharing the house with family, right? Or you have roommates or whatever, they're going to hate you, okay? And it's loud. Like it'll be quiet, right? And then the motors start to make noise after a while. And then you replace those and it's still loud, right? It makes a whining noise or somebody can hear it through the floor, like if you have neighbors below you or even just somebody on the other side of the wall, right? I don't know if you live in the West, but these houses are made of paper, okay? And you can feel and hear everything that goes on just on the other side of the wall. You can hear everything that goes on below. So if I have a printer running, somebody downstairs, even in like a 3-story house, they can hear that it's running. And if they're sensitive to that and they're trying to sleep or they have a night shift, right? And you're awake during the day, working during the day, that becomes an issue. And that's something that you really need to think about when you decide to get into 3D printing, okay? It's not just an inkjet printer, all right? And that goes right to the next comment. I know I have a lot to say because it's been an uphill battle the last couple of years, and I just feel like I'm finally figuring it out, and I keep adding little layers of complexity like the resin printing, but overall, I think I've gotten to a point where I understand the creative process, I understand the time involved, and I understand how to pivot when I'm dealing with these types of machines. But check this comment out. It says, think of how burdensome regular printers can be. Now add a third dimension. Inkjet printers still suck, right? HP printers have gotten worse over time. Now you're adding that third dimension, right? You're not just working in X and Y planes. You're working in X, Y, and Z, all right? It gets crazy. And if it's not leveled, you're in trouble. The good news is that technology has improved. Like I said, we have, I have the older Elegoo Neptune 3, I think, just the basic models. I have 3 of them. I think I have 3. Yeah, I have 3 of them. And they work great. The auto leveling is good enough. And I highly recommend you go with something that people like that's very affordable. I think the Elegoo series it hits that sweet spot for me. The Creality, I was really burned by their quality at the time, but I don't know. They could always be better in the future. Who knows, right? You can't just write off an entire company, although I wanted to. I would give them a shot if they had something impressive, yes. So I guess that ties into the fact that you need to be looking for a company that has a reputable customer service experience. Some of these Facebook groups that, like they have the Elegoo, they probably have a Creality one, right? I don't really use Facebook a whole lot. I try to avoid it, but you can find good groups on there that are adopting, they're early adopters of these newer product lines that come out. And so they'll be able to troubleshoot stuff. And there was some problem. There was a firmware issue with the Elegoo Neptune 3, I believe, when it first came out, and it was scratching the build plate, etc. So they had a firmware update, and I was able to get that information through the Facebook group. Never been back since. Never had to. So look for some reputable company that's doing really well, that's not just all hype. If you can't see through hype, then don't get anything. Okay, so here's another good point. You need to be somewhat technically inclined, and I talked about this a few minutes ago, hopefully, instead of an hour. Need to be able to troubleshoot, dig deep into settings. Yes. Oh my God. And be able to methodically reason your way through issues. I still don't think I'm there yet, and I've been doing this for quite a few years. If you're looking for an easy hobby that just works every time, this isn't for you. I think this is the greatest takeaway of this entire video. I would reread that if I were you. I would come to this website, print that out, and then paste that on your wall. And then you can decide, do I want to do this? I'm a technically envious person. I did electronics, I did coding, and I was just bombarded with, people on the spectrum who hated that I was doing it. They absolutely hated it. You won't see them on the channel, but yeah, they tried. And I love electronics. I love the idea. I've always loved and wanted to get into electronics. I think a lot of people do, but the barrier to entry is really high. I think that's going to lower itself. But I did take pride in, dragging myself through that crucible of self-taught learning. Like I had a book and I programmed the chips in C. That wasn't very popular anymore. Everybody was moved on to Arduino, which I couldn't stand because I didn't understand what was going on. So there's a part of me that wants to be technically inclined and savvy, but I've accepted and learned the fact that I'm way more creatively, intuitively inclined. So I've decided to lean more in that direction. It's not saying I'm not going to go back to electronics. Okay. This guy behind me, I made him. All right. His jaw moves. It's just a little thing that I decided to do when I had no idea what I was doing with my life. So if you're not technically inclined and if you don't have the patience, do not get into 3D printing, period. If you want to get into designing things, right, you could still be a 3D modeler. And I'm always going to tell you the lowest barrier to entry with that is with a VR headset. You can grab the thing in front of you and mold it and sculpt it and cut it, right? It's an amazing thing. Like it's an amazing time. It's a dream. It's a dream. You can make models, you could learn through your mistakes and criticisms from other people and just put your models out there for free. Okay. Just open a page, go to Coles 3D or somewhere else and just start uploading your stuff. Just start uploading it. You don't have to have a printer, but kind of learn. You need to learn what makes something printable. Okay. And then what is accepted. Like if you have a polygonal mess and you have all these creases and there's too many polygons, et cetera, or not enough, it's not going to be a good experience for the person printing it. These printers aren't a wonder do-it-all solution, okay? There's certain things that you need to know, like getting something flat. That was a real challenge for a lot of my things, but oh, look, I forgot to tell you about this one. This is my Goblin candy dispenser, okay? There's a little cavity in the top. I made a video about it. Go check it out. Okay, you fill the candy at the top, and then you rotate that, and then, you know, the candy comes out down his tongue. It's awesome. Go check it out. You can download it on Coles 3D. I made that for Halloween when I was doing a bunch of pumpkin carving, so that's why his face looks so ugly. Anyway, I forgot what I was talking about, but I'm just trying to share as much information about this as possible because I don't know if I want to talk about this again. This kind of stresses me out a little bit, but I'm looking back at all the time that I spent troubleshooting printers and saying, I'm done. I would have made a whole lot more stuff, and I probably would have been better at my craft if I had stuck with 3D printing and didn't let it. Basically, I took, I would take months off. I took months off in my first 3 years. Like I would take months off from even thinking about 3D printing. You know, beer's a lot cheaper and a lot more fun. Oh my God, look at this. This is exactly what I'm saying. I know I'm not the only one out there. Look at this comment. It's not a replica. Okay, this is by Pyro Guy 096 on here. You can see. I just said this. It's not a replicator / magic. They aren't plug and play yet. Some are close, but it's not like buying a microwave. I think I'm not the only one who says this, right? The microwave it's easier to use than an inkjet printer. So I think a lot of us are thinking of the same thing, like if it gets to the level of, level 4 hydrate, please, you push the button and it just pops it out. I think the microwave is an excellent example of a simple concept, but it's a technically complex machine. Everything has to be right. It's got coils in it, and electricity running through it. It's easy to use. Any dodo can just push the button. That's what we're talking about when we use this analogy, this metaphor, whatever it's called. Okay. And then he says, don't expect to make proper use of it just by using other people's designs. If you want to utilize its full potential, you'll need to learn basic modeling at least. This is what I've been saying. Okay, great minds think alike. You're probably thinking the same thing too. If you're a rage quitter / controller thrower, this ain't it, Chief. Oh my gosh. I told you I'd beat up my printers, right? You need the proper space / environment. I just said that, especially for the resin printing. Yeah, you need to be conscious about the people that you're sharing your environment with, whether it's at your office. I don't know if you have like a warehouse or you work in an office or your bed. You have this idea in your head like it's just an inkjet printer, and there's going to be no smell, no noise, no annoyance. Okay. Have you ever had a printer clog? I have some videos about that. Have you ever had a printer catch fire in the middle of the night because it jams? Oh yeah. That shit happens. So there's all these things that can go wrong with the 3D printer. So you need to really have this at the forefront of your mind before deciding to jump into 3D printing. It's a very deep hobby. I wanted to stop it right there. I thought that one really summed it up well. I think that comment was pretty much everything I talked about so far in this video, but this one made me laugh, and then we'll just cut it off for here. You're gonna waste kilos of single-use plastic on largely useless trinkets. Now, I have all my original designs, right? But it doesn't mean that anybody wants these, okay? It doesn't mean that anybody wants to print it. It doesn't mean that you're going to use it every day, right? So you are gonna probably throw it away. I just threw away a bunch of stuff that I designed and printed. I threw away a ton of it. Just because I didn't want to see it anymore. I didn't want it in the house. I just had to clear it out. I had to purge. And you're going to have to purge eventually. It's dumb. It's not like having, a finished product. Like, it's not like having, your earbuds in the case, This isn't a finished product like that. These are great for concepts. And especially if you're interested in like inventive concepts or new case designs for things, you can make all kinds of stuff, little hacks and replacement pieces for around the house. And I have like a YouTube short or two about that you can check out on this channel. But this is the only thing that I really use consistently on a daily basis. My 9mm chamber flag, I don't have any other chamber because I just don't care. And 9mm the most popular caliber right now on the planet. So everybody keeps downloading it. I don't need anything else right now. So that's why I only came out with the one. And it's not rocket science. You could make it if you wanted. But that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. I just had this idea, this feeling. I'm going to be painting more in Vermilion, and I'm going to be continuing my sculpt. I still got to print the Elegoo Eskimo candy dispenser thing. That's kind of what I've been doing, is food and candy dispensers recently. But I don't want you to get into 3D printing if you're not sure about the technical cliff dive that you're going to be doing. So will we get to that microwave level of ease of use? Someday, yeah. I think in the next, I'd say 10 years. 5 years, I'm not so sure. We're still in the early adoption phase. You need it in like a lot of houses, right? I would say about 10 years, maybe 20. And by then we'll have, you know, ones that can do multiple different types of materials, or who knows, maybe you're not going to, I don't know, maybe it'll print it out of thin air. We'll have like a replicator type of thing. I have no idea. I don't care. I'm just focused on like, what do we have now? What do I want to make now? And does the market care? So if you're somebody like me and you're trying to come up with products, you know, and concept things, will the market even care? It does. You can have the best thing in the world, and if the market doesn't care or doesn't want it at that time, you're going to be broke. Until the next video, stay creative, get to sculpting, get to painting. If you want to take a look at what VR sculpting and painting is, check out all the videos on my channel. And I'll see you in the next video.